Hello everyone, and welcome back to M. Rojas English. I'm so happy to see you here. Today, I have a very special lesson for you. We are going to listen to a spooky story perfect for a rainy day. But this isn't just for entertainment. This story is designed to help you improve your listening skills, expand your vocabulary, and master English pronunciation. Here's the plan for this video. First, I'll tell you a story called The Midnight Shadow. Then we will break down the difficult vocabulary and expressions from the story. After that, I'll ask you some questions to test your understanding. Finally, we'll do a speaking practice session where you'll repeat after me to perfect your accent. To get the most out of this 15-minute lesson, make sure you are in a quiet place. Are you ready? Let's begin. Listen carefully to the story. It was a Tuesday night, and I was completely alone at home. My parents had gone out of town for a wedding, leaving me in charge of the house for the weekend. Outside, the weather was terrible. A violent storm was passing through the city. The rain wasn't just falling. It was hammering against the roof, and every few minutes, a flash of lightning would illuminate the living room, followed by the deep, angry rumble of thunder. To distract myself from the storm, I decided to make a cup of hot herbal tea and settle down on the sofa with a book. I wasn't reading a comedy or a romance novel. No, I had chosen a psychological thriller about a family living in an old haunted mansion. The living room was warm, but as I read page after page, the atmosphere in the house seemed to change. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, tick-tock, tick-tock. It was almost midnight. I was deeply focused on a chapter where the main character hears a whisper in the dark. Suddenly, crash. I jumped off the sofa, spilling a little bit of tea on the rug. The sound had come from the kitchen. It sounded like a heavy metal pot hitting the floor. My heart began to race. It's just the wind, I whispered to myself. Or maybe the cat knocked something over. But then I remembered. I don't have a cat. I stood there, frozen. The house was silent again, except for the rain. I knew I had to check, but my legs felt heavy. I gathered my courage, picked up my phone to use as a flashlight, and walked slowly toward the dark hallway. The floorboards creaked under my feet. Creak! I reached the kitchen doorway. My hand trembled as I reached for the light switch. Click! The light flooded the room. I looked around. The pots were hanging on the rack. The dishes were in the sink. Nothing was on the floor. The window was closed tight. There was absolutely nothing there. I let out a long breath. See? I said aloud, my voice echoing slightly. It was just your imagination. I turned off the kitchen light and walked back to the living room. I sat down and picked up my book again, feeling a little silly. But just as I started to read, I heard it. Thumped dot 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 dot, thumped the dot dot dot, footsteps. But they weren't coming from the kitchen. They were coming from the staircase. Someone or something was slowly walking up the stairs to the second floor. A cold chill ran down my spine. The hair on my arms stood up. I held my breath, listening intently. Thump dot dot thump. I knew I was the only person with a key. The doors were locked. Who was upstairs? Terrified but needing to know, I walked to the bottom of the stairs and looked up into the darkness. Is anyone there? I called out. Silence. Then, a flash of lightning lit up the staircase for a split second. I saw a shadow move near the top railing. I gasped and flipped the hallway light on. Empty. The stairs were empty. At that moment, I realized the sound wasn't a person. The old house was just settling in the cold wind, and the footsteps were just the loose shutter banging against the wall outside on the second floor. I laughed nervously. I was so relieved, but also exhausted from the fear. I decided that was enough horror stories for one night. I ran upstairs, closed the loose shutter, and went straight to bed, pulling the blanket over my head. I fell asleep listening to the rain, happy to be safe and warm. That was quite a scary night, wasn't it? Now, let's look at some advanced vocabulary and useful expressions from the story. Understanding these will help you describe scary or intense situations. First up is hammering, is a verb meaning to hit or strike something very hard. In the story, the rain was hammering against the roof. For example, you could say, the headache was hammering inside my skull. Next, we have rumble, which can be a noun or a verb. It's a low, heavy, continuous sound. For instance, we heard the rumble of a large truck passing by. Then there's the adjective haunted. This describes a place frequented by ghosts or spirits. You might hear, nobody wants to buy that old house because they say it is haunted. Let's look at the verb to race, especially when talking about your heart. It means your heart is beating very fast due to fear or excitement. For example, my heart started to race when the teacher called my name. Here's a great expression, gathered my courage. It means to force yourself to be brave even when you're scared. For example, he gathered his courage and asked for a promotion. Another useful verb is creaked. It means to make a harsh, high-pitched sound when moved or pressured, usually wood. Like, the old door creaked as I opened it. And this classic idiom, a chill ran down my spine. This is a physical feeling of sudden fear or excitement. For example, when I saw the accident, a chill ran down my spine. Finally, the verb settling used for a house. This is when a house makes noises because its materials, like wood and metal, expand or contract with temperature changes. You could say, don't worry about the noise. It's just the house settling. Before we practice speaking, let's see how well you understood the story. I will ask a question, and I want you to answer it out loud. I'll give you 5 seconds to answer. Question 1. What was the weather like in the story? The answer is, it was stormy. The rain was hammering down and there was thunder and lightning. Question 2. What caused the loud noise in the kitchen? The answer, actually nothing caused it. When I checked the kitchen, there was nothing there. It was likely just my imagination or the storm. Question 3. What made the footsteps sounds on the stairs? The answer is, it was a loose shutter banging against the wall outside. Now, this is the most important part of the lesson. We are going to practice shadowing. I will read a sentence from the story. I want you to repeat it exactly as I say it. Copy my speed, my intonation, and my emotion. We will do this 2 times for each sentence. The rain wasn't just falling. It was hammering against the roof. The rain wasn't just falling. It was hammering against the roof. My heart began to race. I told myself it was just the wind. My heart began to race. I told myself it was just the wind. I gathered my courage and walked slowly toward the dark hallway. I gathered my courage and walked slowly toward the dark hallway. A cold chill ran down my spine. The hair on my arm stood up. A cold chill ran down my spine. The hair on my arm stood up. I looked up, but there was nothing there. I looked up, but there was nothing there. I was relieved, but also exhausted from the fear. I was relieved, but also exhausted from the fear. You did a fantastic job today. Listening to stories is one of the best ways to learn English naturally because you learn words in context. Here's your homework. Try to tell this story to a friend, or write a summary of it in the comments below. Did you ever have a scary experience when you were alone? I would love to read about it. Thank you for watching Rojas English. Don't forget to like this video if you learned something new and subscribe for more lessons. Stay safe and see you in the next video.